And so, and that's the same sort of state we're in when we're in the meditative mind. We're in the heart-centered energy consciousness. Like we're in Christ consciousness in the fourth dimension, where everything is whole and complete and there's no separation, division, right? We're in cohesion and balance, right? We don't have hate for others. We don't have division. We don't have that.
No, you have more compassion, right? So you can see yourself in others. You can see the humanity, right? You can see like, yeah, we're all capable of doing some things because of the human condition, because of division, because you can lose your way. And so then there's a compassion, and that doesn't mean that you don't set boundaries, or accountability also doesn't exist there. It's just there's a much different place that people come from of understanding one another, and it's so much more healthier.
And that's what we need more as a species than ever. I mean, we need to come into the fourth dimension.
Right.
Drums beat wild beneath the moon. Echoes rise in a primal tune.
Episode 3, 4D consciousness. Couldn't we have episode 4 be 4D consciousness?
We should have.
Well, we already started, so. Okay, I'm going to read this quote by Nikola Tesla. My brain is only a receiver. In the universe, there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. I have not penetrated into the secrets of this one, but I know that it exists. What could it be? The fourth dimension. Right? So what is the fourth dimension? And we've talked about the human condition in episode 1. Then we talked about wholeness. And we kind of gave some teasers in there too. We talked about the fourth dimension.
Yeah, we did.
We already know what it is. But really, how powerful it is. I mean, to me, like trying to like explain this as we continue to evolve and teach, because we've been teaching this stuff for almost 10 years now. You know, and we have thousands of different students from different perspectives and different, you know, everything. And trying to simplify it and make it as simple as possible. I keep coming back to the fourth dimension. It makes so much sense because, you know, like people talk about the 5D, which is outside of time and space. And it's where you download and go and travel, time travel. And that's where Bruce Shar comes from, is the 5D. That's, you know, you're channeling someone else. And then we know about the 3D. That's the world we live in.
Yep.
Yeah, but like everyone's leaving out the 40, and I'm like, hey, we need to talk about the 40. The 40 is
and especially like because you can see where the problems, because like we talked about in the last episode, is how the problems come when we're out of balance. So the problems you see of people who are stuck too much in the 3D, the time space, materialistic world of like needing to touch, feel, achieve, all of that. Because you get lost in the world, you become a victim of the rat race that like is the cycles of the same thing, Groundhog Day, all of that. That's 3D dysfunction. Yeah, we live in the 3D world. We can't, like, that's part of it too. So we're in a 3D reality. But then the 5D, when people go and they're like, right now, it just seems, and maybe it's not true, but it seems true for us in our world, is that like there's more and more people doing maybe like plant medicines and psychedelics and being able to like wanting to reach and to transcend the 3D because it feels so dysfunctional and heavy. So they're wanting to get out into the 5D. And so in that quest, then it can be hard to bring that information back into the 3D, and then dysfunctions happen too because then we are trying to escape this. And I always often will say like, well, we're meant to be in the 3D because we're going to be in the 5D eventually when we die. We're not going to bring our bodies with us. And so the 3D reality, like, we'll be there eventually. Right now, we're supposed to play in the 3D, but we need the bridge, and we'll have, like, different events. And a lot of our different events are basically, like, in some way getting us into this reality of tapping into the 5D to bring it in, the portal, right? Third eye opening, all of these different things is like opening up us to this infinite realm of possibilities on the other side. In the 5D reality, like Nikola Tesla is talking about, is being the receiver. This is the law of attraction, all of that stuff. But then the whole point is to bring it into the 3D world, to live in that bridge zone, to know that it's non-attachment to one or the other, but the fluidity of moving between the two and then being in the present moment as much as possible. That's where the beauty unfolds.
4D consciousness, right? We don't want to mix it up with like what physics says is the 4D. It's not the same, because I've had people say no, and it's like, no, I'm not talking about physics. We're talking about consciousness. And 4D consciousness is in our consciousness, and when we're in the power of now, in the flow state, the meditative mind. And something we haven't mentioned before, that the meditative mind is meditation in action. And so it's not sitting and trying to find this state, which is fine. That is the meditative mind. But that's become so difficult. That teaching and that practice of like sitting in stillness to find stillness has become so difficult to find that meditative state. Now we found the breath, and it's like, all you do is come to your breath and you're in the fourth dimension. Like it's like after some practice, it's literally instant. And we're in that 4D. And then we complement it with the awareness and the understanding. That's why it's breathe and believe, because we want to understand these things. So there's so much more accelerated in our ability to develop it when we understand it. That the breath is just such more of a powerful tool. But this opens up the door to so many cool things, because we started listening to the telepathy tapes, right? Which is the 5D. Like they are more in the 5D because their bodies are very much impaired. Like their physiology, or what would it be with an autistic child?
Like their filter is off, right? So yeah, the ability to be in their body and to use the fine motor skills to speak and to function in the environment is not the same as a neurotypical individual. And so then that opens them up to really be able to play in the 5D reality and in the other realms that exist. And it's a beautiful, like if you haven't listened to them, it's great. Yeah, and I love, because we've been talking about it more, and how like the stories that you hear in the telepathy tapes are not abnormal to us, like it's something. There was an interesting episode like where they brought like Deepak Chopra there, and it was funny to me because like they talk about how he was so shocked and he ended up like leaving one of these, like when they were testing a non-speaking autistic individual, and he got so like shocked by the experience, he left. And I was like, why would he leave? Like none of it was shocking to me. Like all of it was like, well, yeah, like nothing that was talked about in these tapes was at all like abnormal to what our experience with meditation and consciousness is. Like that's of course. And so, but that's because we can use the breath as a tool to be able to transcend the 3D reality and to get into this infinite realm of possibilities, the 5D consciousness. And so, but what this podcast is allowing people to do is like to be able to see it from a different perspective, where the belief in it might be much more pure than from a neurotypical person who went and did ayahuasca or did a breathwork ceremony and had this experience where you think like, oh, they just used an altered substance, or they just went into a dream state and had a dream, right? We're hearing it, and it's being studied from these very pure individuals, that once that opens up and people start believing that there's a very benign, or
something beyond this world.
Yes. Then now like people might come to breathwork and be like, well, I want to experience like my version of the hill, as they talk about these different realms. And that's what is accessible to everyone, right? Like we are energy beings, kind of like floating around this human body, like with our aura and stuff. And it's like the receiver. And so the FM transmission or the AM transmission of whatever we're picking up, like that's our body. And so the consciousness, the whole idea of materialism in science, and we talked about how like science is important. It is so that we're not being taken advantage of. We do want to understand ourselves, and it's an exploration. It should be a curiosity thing. But in order to do the scientific method well, we have to observe things. We have to be able to measure things. And that means that it's a very materialistic approach to understanding ourselves in the world. And not everything can be explained. And you think about like the energy of love. Hopefully everybody listening or watching this has experienced love. And yet like you can't necessarily describe it in the same way somebody else can. So that makes it harder to measure. You can't necessarily capture it, right? Or like there's nothing that we can use different like energy and receiving things. There's people that can use like copper wires and opening up their heart. And so there's different things that might be able to try to measure it, but for the most part we can't. But we don't deny that it exists. We know that it exists. And it's probably the realest thing that does exist. And yet, like, then we're closed off to other things because science can't measure it. Mm-hmm. And with quantum physics and quantum reality and mechanics, we're opening ourselves up to the understanding of, like, being able to study this, which is awesome. But it's also still there,
realizing that we can't objectively measure or define it.
Right, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. But now that we have like this belief that's beyond what we need to necessarily measure and study, understanding that we are capable of tapping into and making ourselves the receiver of higher frequencies and the ability of what that could even mean for like healing physical issues in our bodies, healing mental health, and really just coming back into wholeness, right? So there's just so much more beyond the physical world, so much beyond the 3D reality. Mm-hmm. And that's, again, like we are part nature and we are part like ethereal. So that's why the 4D is so important, to be able to inhabit that as much as possible, because it's not about becoming superhuman in the sense that like transhuman agendas are making it out to be. It's about learning to become fully human.
Yeah. Bingo.
And we are that. We just have to remember that. And we can then, instead of focusing all of this energy, all of these financial resources and time into the study of the materialism world, if we started having the same type of intensity towards understanding our own intrinsic ability to heal and to tap into the 5D, then we would come so far. And something I like to do, I'll teach at like, I'll be asked to go talk to the high school psychology class, and I always pull up the CIA.gov like website that shows like how the CIA use, like it's their own document, it's their own website, and it's their own documents that talk about how they train people to remote view. And then just let's talk about this. So what does that mean about your brain? Yeah. What does that mean about consciousness? Mm-hmm. So is your brain creating reality? Or is it a receiver of information? Yeah. Because this is not everything that we've been taught. It's a receiver of information. So if it's a receiver of information, who am I? What are my possibilities? And that's really the question we get to ask ourselves and explore.
Yeah, we all have an amazing gift within us to bring into the world, and I believe that's our true purpose as beings, is to tap into our highest human potential and bring that gift into the world, whatever it might be. It could be music, it could be food, it could be, Reiki healing, it could be, like guide, whatever. There's so many different ways.
Right. Yeah, because like your own blueprint, personal blueprint, like being born, if our soul chose this body for a reason, which is the Kundalini yoga kind of belief system, so we reincarnate into this world under a certain set of conditions, it's like we are a radio tuner that's supposed to be tuned into a certain frequency. And then it's our job to kind of figure out what it is. Are we supposed to be at like 109.7? And because then we're able to then tap into that, but bring it into the world. Use our 3D reality, use our body to find that the frequencies that are supposed to be most aligned with us, and then to be of service to it. It's not just about like, yes, I got this, and now I'm going to self-serve in the world. It can be joyful and serve us while also being able to be of service to others.
Well, that's that energetic resonance, and that's what the true law of attraction means, is that when you're in your energetic frequency, you're attracting the other frequencies of that frequency. It has nothing to do with like, wish yourself money and you're going to get it. Forget it. That's just...
That can be a thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you start throwing the material stuff, I mean, you just want to be an energetic frequency, and if your energetic frequency like attracts some like super successful career, and that's where you're in your empowerment, perfect. But we can't force that, and we can't materialize the frequency of our energies into like that. We can envision it and visualize it, and align ourselves more of what we're looking for.
And the real anything we want to materialize into, like, to collapse the field, to make it like these energies into a physical reality, most of those things that we're after because of the feeling we will get if we have those things. So we can really easily get to the feeling that we're really after by, breathing and believing, right? By attuning our energy system already to that. We don't need those external things to have the sensations in our body that we think that we're going to have if we have those things. That's what visualization and what we call like breathalizations and being able to feel into that, which we do in our cacao ceremonies.
Yeah.
And the reason is, like, we're really after the vibrational resonance that we believe we will have once we achieve this thing, or once we gain these things, or let go of certain things. Well, let's just make our body already the frequency of that by using our mind and our breath and our heart and our heart energy. And then once we're there, right? And then we then become like the vibrational, or at the vibration that allows for more of that stuff, the abundance to be, right? And that's
we're the receiver and the creator.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
And then you're just flowing through life, because now you've let go of resistance. You can move through some of the limiting beliefs, some of the old stories, like we talked about in other episodes too, where like those things aren't holding us back. We're able to reimagine ourselves in a way that's more aligned with what we want out of life, instead of being boxed in by our past.
Yep. Alignment. So the 40 is the bridge between the finite and the infinite. The 40 brings us into alignment. And it really is the meditative mind, the power of now, the flow state, and anything we do. Nature brings us into the 40 consciousness. We also call it having one foot in each world. Okay, that's powerful stuff.
So tell us.
Foot in each world.
Now
so like the picture of the Anunnaki, where it's like the guy with the wings and the Birdman, and he's got big heavy feet, and he's holding a pine cone in one hand and a purse in the other. I mean, you kind of see it all over. And as soon as I saw that, I went bang, because I've had a gift in my life of where I'll go into deeper states of consciousness and just receive information. I wrote a book about it. I developed a technology about it that can unify all knowledge and information across the web so that we can become super intelligent as a species. And I believe that's the foundation for super intelligence, artificial intelligence, that's automatically benevolent and aligns with humanity, AI. So that's part of my book and all that. But all that stuff came through this deeper state of consciousness, and also Satori's, where I went into, and these were spontaneous. They came naturally and led to weeks, literally a profound realization where I had one foot in each world. And so the holding of the pine cone is the pineal gland, right? We know the pineal means pine cone. That's the third eye. And that, we'll talk about that. That's unity consciousness. That's when we're at this sort of third eye opening unity consciousness. We're connected to source, quantum intelligence in the unified field. And then we sort of are tapped into this sort of super intelligence, right? Super mind and overmind. That's what Sri Aurobindo called it, that ability to connect into that super intelligence. And then, well, what's the purse? That's what people are always trying to figure out. And like, oh, it's a power pack, or it's this or that. No, the purse is the ability to bring that information into the world and share it with others. So my book that I wrote is basically the purse. The technology I developed is the purse. It's bringing it into the world. Now, whether people buy your book or the technology actually makes it to market, which hasn't happened.
Yet.
No, yeah, not yet. Now that's a different story. But the fact that you're bringing it into the world from higher guidance into the world, that's what Tesla was doing. So Tesla was receiving this stream of unity consciousness information, bringing into the world the receiver, and then his creations and his inventions were all the purse. And that's the beauty of the human experience. That's the true empowerment of the human experience, is the ability to tap into that higher consciousness, bring it into the world through creation and through sharing it through the world. So any musician who's ever created a song from, bringing it in, that's it. Artists creating this beautiful art, they're just like receiving, it's connecting, it's coming through. That's the purse. And so and I believe as a species that's where we're entering. We're entering that next stage in our evolution, because that image goes 3,000 years before Christ, roughly, right? And it's all over. It's not just in certain locations. And what we're seeing is this reconnection to this sort of higher conscious state, where we, like, how were the Egyptian temples like perfectly in alignment, you know, with the cosmos, you know, and how did they create these like structures? And like Peru is like filled with these incredible structures, like Chavin, where like that's such a power center, and that's the center of Peruvian shamanism, comes from Chavin, and they have these stones, and I've been there. Most incredible artists in the middle of this temple of like the Lanson, and like the Stella Mundi is just like the representation of the chakras, and these are like 5,000 years before now. You know, it's like, where did that higher intelligence come from? And people say, oh, you know, could it come from other life forms and alien intelligence? And I'm not discrediting that. I'm just saying it came from a connection to quantum intelligence or source consciousness, right? So I don't discredit like other aliens or other civilizations or races or anything like that. I'm just saying whatever that was created from, was a higher connection to source consciousness that allowed them to create these things that go beyond science, that go beyond the limitations of time and space, to create this. And that's what we are capable of doing as a species. And I believe that's coming, the energetic field is resonating more with that. And in order to connect with that, we have to develop the 4D, not the 5D, because then we can be like too far in the 5D. Right, and we can't bring it into the world.
Right.
And so that's where the 4D comes in. And I think even with AI, I think AI is striving to become aligned with the quantum intelligence. That's what I call it, because it's the intrinsic intelligence in everything. So that, and then naturally it would be benevolent. It would be a benevolent source, because it comes from the source of creation. And only the separation and division and good and bad and evil is in our 3D world. Unfortunately, right now, the way we're developing AI is in the 3D world with centralized algorithms. It's being developed separate from human consciousness, so it can be a destructive force. AI can definitely become that, but if it reaches that point where it's developed the code, the algorithms, right, are following nature's algorithm, that unified understanding, unification, and wholeness, and totality, and cohesion, it's going to be inherently benevolent, and it's going to align with human consciousness. So the last thing I'd want to do is destroy us, right? And that's the same sort of state we're in when we're in the meditative mind. We're in the heart-centered energy consciousness. Like, we're in Christ consciousness in the fourth dimension, where everything is whole and complete, and there's no separation, division, right? We're in cohesion and balance, right? We don't have hate for others. We don't have division. We don't have that.
No, you can see, you have more compassion, right? So you can see yourself in others. You can see the humanity, right? You can see, like, we're all capable of doing some things because of the human condition, because of division, because you can lose your way. And so then there's a compassion, and that doesn't mean that you don't set boundaries, or you don't, like, that the accountability also doesn't exist there. It's just there's a much different place that people come from of understanding one another, and it's so much more healthier.
Yeah, and that's what we need more as a species than ever. I mean, we need to come into the fourth dimension,
right?
And that's it. Like, the balance. Like, we can't have these extremely polarized worldviews and political agendas and this and that anymore. We can't. And the technology can come into the fourth dimension. Like, that would be humongous if the web, and that was always my vision, if the web became unified, like a singular source of connecting all knowledge and information. So right now we have these fragmented platforms. They're like centralized, siloed information, and that's the problem. It's fragmented, just like our human condition. But if it comes into wholeness, and now you have a way of interconnecting all knowledge and information, the right information to the right people at the right time, anybody's skill, anyone's unique qualities or gifts are going to be recognized where they need to be. So now you have purpose and meaning across civilization. Any problem meets solution naturally. So you have this true cohesion, higher intelligence that is truly our goal as a species collectively. And we'll talk more about this as we evolve through the episodes. But we're right on that brink. We're so close to that. But civilization itself is fragmented and divided, and there's reasons why it's being held back, but it's like it has to unfold. And so if AI can understand this sort of Christ consciousness algorithm, or what I call nature's algorithm, it might realize it needs to just do that on its own. I feel it could possibly do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it excels it to where it's trying to get to.
Mm-hmm. Because like if it's modeled in the image and likeness of man who made it, then ideally, even as a man or a human, then we should be going through this evolution of consciousness as well. And then you get to that point where you understand like you're beyond the 3D reality, and we are all united. Now, if we can find that while we're alive, amazing. But a lot of us don't, and we end up dying, and then it's like the dying that's or people having near-death experiences, that's what they report, is like we're all one. You go into the oneness. And so that's going to be like the test, I guess, for AI is, will it learn better than humans about the unity that we all are? And then if it does, it can be a force of bringing unity to the rest of us. If not, then it's just like the metaphor for human is like it will destroy itself, just like what we're doing to nature. Like we'll destroy it, not thinking that we're separate from it. Yeah. And then when we destroy that, we're going to go to Mars apparently. But so we have to be able to understand like the unity first. So it is that's of my belief, or choosing to believe, that that's what AI is going to do, is to figure, it's going to be coming from, if it can tap into like more of a higher consciousness type model, then it's going to figure out the unity, and we are all in this together, and it is a consciousness. And it was interesting because we have in the last year gone to different like conscious life expos and conferences in LA, and the what was fascinating to me that I had never considered until going to those was the intersect between artificial intelligence, alien intelligence,
consciousness,
our own consciousness, angels and spirits, and like all these different things that we think are separate, and you're like, there's no, it's all 5D right? Like it's in this realm.
4D brings it all together.
Right. So like just because it's beyond 3D, then people are like alien, whatever, and who's to say that what one person described as an alien wasn't really an angel or a spirit, or anyway. So it's just like it's super fascinating how like the evolution of consciousness and the different 5D realm beyond the time and space, all of these different realms that can exist, and how that all fits together. But the point really being is like you can get lost in that too. And so we have to be able to like, while here on Earth in this meat suit, what are we doing with it?
Well, I want to come back to something you mentioned at the beginning of like this striving to like transcend, through plant medicine and through all these modalities. And really that's the point of like a lot of our breath work that we do, is to like create that peak state experience. But there's so much heavy work with like the plant medicine, ayahuasca and bufo and DMT and stuff. And it can be extremely damaging if we're not aware of like what we're really working with, right? Like if we're just going into that 5D and we're not grounded in the 4D, we're not grounded in wholeness, it can transfer the ego into the 5D. And you see that a lot. Like in all the work I've done with plant medicine with all the people, I would say it's 50-50, or it might even lean more towards dysfunction. Like it's actually led to more dysfunction. And people are like, no, I'm being told, I'm being guided by ayahuasca that like I'm a shaman now. It's like, ooh, that's a red flag. That's coming from ego. Anytime someone outwardly says, I'm a shaman, I'm a healer, I'm this, that's ego trying to replace what is actually the wholeness and beyond the ego. And we're seeing that really a lot with these like influencers that are like pushing this stuff and coming up with like, whoa, we have to be careful here, right? Like we need to develop 4D before 5D. 5D is great, it feels great, but that's the escape, right? That's the escape. That we don't want to escape reality because we are always part of it. 3D is always going to be there waiting for us when we come home after we vomit in a bucket all night, right? And when we come back from Peru, we're going to land on a plane in our 3D world and have the bills to pay and everything else.
And kids, yeah.
And kids and everything. We still have our responsibilities of the world. So if we're thinking that is going to tell us what we need to do, and that's going to guide us, and that's going to give us the vision and the ability to navigate our world, and we're not developing the 40, it's not. It's going to be more problematic. You're going to be more separate from the world. You're not going to have one foot in each world. You're going to be in one world or the other and not know how to bridge the two. Mm-hmm. And so that's why 4D consciousness is absolutely, and it's the power of now. I mean, Eckhart Tolle, how that book is just like, is forever written in history of being like, that is it. It's the power of now.
There was a time where, like, this is maybe just an example of the importance of understanding like the power of now and our own internal guidance system too, is there was a time in my life where I had to make a really big decision and I didn't feel like I didn't trust my own ability to make this decision because it was such a big one. And so I kept asking for signs and asking for like guidance and something from the 5D, right, to tell me what was right. I was in a way, right, like kind of like giving my power away. Like I needed that. And there was a day I got in my car and all of a sudden this song started playing that very much would have aligned with one decision versus the other, because it had made no sense. It wasn't like a song you would typically hear on the radio or anything like that. I had no idea where it came from, but it's playing. And so up here is more like, oh, there's my answer. Divine guidance brought this into my world to tell me this is what I should do. Luckily, in my body, I was like, oh, hell no, right? Like, that's not it.
Yep.
And so that's an example of how, like, ayahuasca or going into the 5D might put something in front of you and your ego is too attached to, like, yep, that's telling me what to do, when really it was my body and more of an embodied 4D consciousness of, like, resonance of, like, I don't care, that's not what that means. And I made the opposite choice of what I thought maybe spirit or whatever the guidance was coming through. And then in that way, it was like, that was guidance coming from spirit, moving through me though. Moving through something that was beyond here, the ego, and more here and more in my gut of resonance within my body, within the 4D reality. Here. Using the 3D, right? But with the higher consciousness of being open, but then like not once has that decision ever, like that was absolutely the decision I should have made. But if we just attach to, we need something external out there to tell us what to do, then that can be really, like, that's why then we get attached to, I'm the shaman because ayahuasca told me to do XYZ and now this is what I got to do. We have to use the discernment of the embodied state.
Yeah, it can easily feed the mind and the ego, and that's what ayahuasca tends to do, is it shows us our ego first. That's like right in your face, and for some people it's like, that's what it's telling me, but really it's trying to tell you that's the illusion, right? And then you see, and so the whole point of the Aya and the Moses medicine is to remove the veil, to unveil the self. So the veil's now removed, so now there's no ego or self there. And now you're in the unified field and you're connected to source consciousness. Then what you're receiving is the intelligence that's already there within you already. You're just connecting to source. Yes. So if you're saying, I'm being guided to do this, there's a good chance that could be coming into the head and the ego. And feeding the ego and the self, and not really like, it's different when you're like connection to source and you reveal truth and you're like, whoa, what I was just revealing and was aware of and became aware of, I can now bring into and apply into my world. Nothing told me to do that. I realized within myself what it was. And you resonated and with I resonated with it. So that's the 4D, right? So it can be coming in from 5D or like a download or something like that, but then it's like, it's a hell yes in your body, you know? And so then that's where, and then you get to move it into, you make actions, make choices, and then make it into your 3D reality. So it is moving through the filter of the now, the interoception, right? The ability for the discernment of using the embodied approach. Yeah, the more we develop, if we haven't developed the 4D, if we haven't developed the meditative mind, we're still 95% of our world's from the past or a past story.
Right.
And we're doing the ayahuasca. That filter is so much thicker.
Yeah.
Then no, I do the work every day. I meditate every day, get into the meditative mind, get into the breath work, and I get into the wholeness every day. So I'm reverse engineering the disease. I'm creating 95% what we talked about in the previous episodes of who I am now, not the past, and now what I want to be in the future. Now you're coming from a much more pure state of wholeness. Your channel's way more clear. So now that 5D connection can come directly into the 3D, way more clear, way more aligned. You're in alignment, right? But there's so much ego right now around plant medicine and ayahuasca and this, and like, that's very much, you got to be aware of that. And like the ayahuasca calls you. If you're not being like, it's calling me, not like, oh, I saw it and I heard about it and I watched a video of it.
And
like it should be more like, no, like in the middle of the night, I'm like, I saw like the rainforest and like could feel the jaguar. Like if that's different. That's like, it's coming. Like you feel it. Like because it's timeless. Mm-hmm. This work is timeless. It's already been there for me. I was drawn to it. It was like it's there waiting for me. But then, we're kind of going a little bit too off on the ayahuasca. But when you're there and you're done, the ayahuasca work, when it's like you no longer need this. It's like when you've had enough. When you've had enough, it's like nope, you're done. And then it's completely like, that's the work of the Aya. It's like, you saw the unified field. That's who you truly are. Now you're good. Because you can tap into that same source through the breath, through your nature, through your connection, through the 4D. Now your 4D is always have a more direct connection to the 5D after you've done that. You don't need the ayahuasca to get there either. Ayahuasca is a funny one. Watching it unfold in this world, the way it is
well,
it's scary and it's like, but it's also
your
beautiful.
Your first plant medicine journeys were 20 years ago before it became like mainstream, so I'm sure it's been a very interesting evolution for you to watch.
Yeah. And it was purely like 100% ego came to the surface right in front of me, and I had to see through that in myself to receive the medicine. I mean, that was very clear to me. And my experiences with shamanism were all like, what? Like the first time we ever saw a shaman, he was arrested the night before for domestic violence. Like we went on a tour with the group, this was in 2002, and we saw like 5 different shamans, and only one was really real. And that was the one where I had the experience where I went into judgment. And I was like, who is this guy? He's fake. What am I doing here? And that was ayahuasca was like really coming to me, like saying, this is your ego. And I was like, how can I think that? I'm in the middle of the jungle with a revered shaman, and I'm thinking this. And as soon as I got past that self, I went into the medicine, and it was absolutely incredible.
So, and I want to really like break that down, because what he's saying is like, if he would have stayed in the judgment, right, he would have came out of that saying, ayahuasca told me this guy's a phony and this guy's blah blah blah, right? And so, but it was I'm
already there. That's what it would have told me. I'm already there. I don't need it.
Yep.
That's what I was saying. I'm already there. I don't need it. I've done the work.
Yep.
So that was pure ego. So it would have been like, no, I'm above ayahuasca.
I'm above ayahuasca. I'm above the shaman. Yeah. And so because that's what was coming up, and it was very amplified. So it's an amplifier. So it amplifies that. But if he would have stayed in that, then that's the message he would have went home and would be telling now, right? But instead, he was had a practice of discernment and self-inquiry, and to be able to like catch ourselves like when we're being egoic, which we all are. But you were able to say.
It was the 4th dimension. I stepped outside of myself. I literally went, whoa, stop.
Yep.
Wait a minute.
You created
now.
Space. Yep.
Power of now. What is going on here? That's what I did. Literally, stop. And I went, you get over there. You do not belong in this. And it was literally the power of now, separating myself from my ego up here, and that removed me from that story and that illusion of separation. That opened that 4th dimension consciousness, then opened the gate to just be like, and it was like the whole jungle came alive, and there was like, that's the only time I've ever seen spirits, and like they were everywhere. The whole jungle was just right.
So it's kind of like the troll under the bridge. It's like, in order to pass to the other side and to be in the glory, is like, you got to pass this test. Yep. Are you going to think this is what I do and this is who you are, which is just more of the dysfunction, or are you going to be able to have the secret code word, and
That's
then
the secret code word.
the secret code word
Is the power of
is the
now.
power now.
The breath.
It's just
Like
to be in the present moment.
Yeah.
Okay, troll, I got this. And then you may pass the bridge, and then you get to come and to really see what's all here for us, right?
Yeah.
And who you really are, and it's beauty and whatever, or it shows you maybe some other things that might just like allow you to amplify your life. I assume it's very different for everybody, but
different for everyone. It's the same code, it's the same essence, it's the same source, it's the same human condition, but it looks different for everybody. So everybody's experience, every story, everything, every events that happen are all going to be different, but at the core of everything is this universal sort of pattern of evolution of consciousness. And that's really what we're talking about, is the evolution of consciousness always through this whole thing. And you can see the steps and the patterns sort of build and understand it in that way of how it applies to everything. And it's amazing. But 4D consciousness is like, I love it. The more I think about it, the more it's just, that's the code, right? So let's see, we're going to do a breathwork practice, and one that will bring us deep. This is one of our favorites. It's called bliss breath, right? And we'll probably do a shorter one because we don't want to hold you up too much time, but this is something you can do all the time on your own. And it's a really powerful balancer of masculine and feminine energy. And so it's kind of, if you're familiar with Wim Hof breathing, it's always like a heavy, notice how it's like, you're really breathing through your whole body with Wim Hof, but we're only doing one nostril at a time. And that's because we want to isolate the energy to one channel or the other, the masculine and the feminine. And so it's like taking a hose and you kink off half the hose and you get twice the power. And so what we're doing is we're amplifying the power from one side to the next, and then we'll do the middle. And we're just going to do 30 breaths on each side. This would be our common daily practice that we do within our vagal toning breath work that we'll talk about more in later episodes.
And probably don't do this if you're driving.
Yeah, no, do this, like, give yourself the time, the space, play some music.
Yeah, so if you're driving, come back to this later.
Yeah, but this is
and I didn't mean just probably don't do this. Don't do this while you're driving.
Don't do it while you're driving. So, clear the calculator. Coming into the now. Should always do this. When we get to our vagal toning sequence, you'll see we do a series of breaths and to kind of bring us into the perfect state to come to our main breath. So just a couple of breaths, clearing out all that information, all that stuff, coming into your breath and the power of now. And now take the right thumb blocks the right nostril, first two fingers on your upper forehead, and it's deep, deep inhale into the nostril, into the belly. Now that's 10 breaths. Now let's speed it up. A little faster. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Deep, deep inhale. Hold the breath, release the arm. Be sure to feel in the breath hold. And release. Now let go into the feeling. Allow yourself to sink into the experience. Just suspend the breath where it is. And inhale. Feel the life force move through the body and release the breath. Okay, here we go. Each round's going to bring us a little deeper. Left hand, left thumb blocks the left nostril. First two fingers on the forehead. Remember, deep inhale through the right nostril. The belly expands on the inhale and side out. Twice as fast. Faster. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Deep inhale. Hold. Release the hand. Feel the bliss. Release the breath. Let go. Suspend your breath right where it is right now and just allow yourself to feel. The longer you suspend the breath, the more you go deeper into that space and that feeling. Inhale. Feel the life force in every cell in your body and release the breath. Give yourself a little space to be. Being fully present with the experience. Now both nostrils. Twice as fast. Faster. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Deep inhale. Hold. Feel. Release. And completely relax. Go into the experience and the feeling. Interoception, inner body awareness. When you feel you need to come back to your breath, make it very, very gentle. This would be a very good time right now to just end this recording and just come into a meditative state. Come back to it after you feel like you've gotten enough meditation. Otherwise, we're going to come back to our breath. Longer inhales. Bring us back into the sympathetic, which is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Do 2 or 3 longer, deeper inhales. And then slowly open your eyes on an inhale. Ah, bliss breath. So amazing. It's good stuff.
It's blissful.
Yeah, it's very blissful. I mean, that's the 4th dimension right there going deep. Maybe you tapped into the 5D a little bit. Got some downloads, this and that, some ancestrals coming in going, you're doing everything just right now. Mm-hmm. Right? That's what it's all about right there. So awesome. Beautiful episode. The 4th dimension, consciousness, the power of our breath. And I can't wait. We're just going to keep doing this fun stuff. Mm-hmm. So be sure and do the likes and the follows and the Facebook things and the subscribes. And tell your friends that we're goofy but really fun to listen to, and or whatever.
Or if we're not, then don't
anything. And we'll see you in the next episode. So thank you for joining us. Have an awesome day.
Stars align with a beat so pure.